First we will have a fresh piece of thread and we'll bring the needle up from the back of the card with a little knot on it. This knot will be cut off later. And then we will run our foundation threads under the tack stitches around the perimeter of the lace point. This process is exactly the same as it has been on the square. The only difference is that we're working it off of the edge of an already completed piece of lace. When we reach the square again, we'll secure the thread into a single stitch that is along the top of the square, and then we'll begin to run the thread back under all of the tack stitches. Now we've already run a single pass around, and on our next pass we are actually going to get all the way to the other side, and then on the final pass we will move to the interior of the point and begin working the stitches and the different diagonal lines inside. Again, we're securing into a single stitch. This stitch will get a little bit tight because there's so many pieces of thread passing through it, so be gentle as you insert your needle so that you don't break the head of the stitch. Now that we are at the top, we're going to put the thread through the tack stitch at the top, and then we'll run it inside and underneath all of the remaining tack stitches on this vertical. When we get to the bottom, we connect the stitch right in line with the center spine of the square itself, and then we'll run back up to center. And now, just as we did with the square, we will work out from center and throw our threads to create the interior structure framework. Now if you notice, my corner stitch is a little bit full of thread and I don't want to overstress it, so I'm securing this diagonal in one stitch to the inside of the actual corner. In the final lace it won't be so noticeable, but if we break that stitch and then have to go back and repair, we'll definitely have a harder time of it. We'll continue to work our diagonals, working our way out from center and then back in. Notice that there's no horizontal spine because we only can have room for 6 points in such a small area. If we tried to do 8 points, our stitches would be too crowded and the quote resolution of the lace would be a bit too coarse. So now that we've got all of our center bits run, now we'll work our way out to this corner and then we'll start making the actual stitches on the way in. Now, all of this should be very familiar to you by this point. First, just as in all the corners, we'll wrap our way to the height of the arc, which again is about 4 or 5 wraps. Once we've reached the height of the arc, then we'll throw our stitch out to the side, securing into the top of a stitch along the top edge of the square. Then we will pass our needle between the threads of the foundations here, and then we'll run our needle through the tack stitch under the exterior foundation threads and back to center and out to the tack stitch again. And just as every other corner, we'll work our 4 stitches, picot 4 stitches along this portion of the arc. Now, the lower portion of the arc in this case is much too small to have 8 stitches plus a picot in the center. So instead, we're just going to throw our needle out to that edge and just cover it with 4 buttonhole stitches and no embellishments at all. Once our arc is complete in the corner, we'll then proceed to wrap the diagonal all the way back to center. Once that's done, we'll just proceed across the center line to the opposite diagonal, and we'll just wrap this all the way back to center. Again, the area is so small, there's no real need to put additional arcs or embellishment in this portion of the lace. So we'll just wrap back to center, and then we'll repeat the arc in the corner, in the other lower corner, and then we'll, at the very center, the bottom, we'll throw the thread down to the base and wrap our way back to center. Once all of our wraps and arcs are complete, we'll continue to work our way out of the point, up the center spine, working the star and the arcs that go along with it. As you can see here, all the diagonals are complete, and now I'm wrapping the center and working my way up to the middle of the design. Now that we're back to the center of our point, we can begin working our way out of the point while simultaneously working the center star of the point itself. Now this process is nearly identical to what we did in the square as we worked our way out of the center of the square and completed the star. Once we reach the top, then we'll run the remaining foundation threads down the right side of the point and then work our buttonhole stitches and arcs and picots around the outside perimeter. But right now, let's focus on just completing the center. So I've run the thread back up to the point and down so that we have 3 foundation threads over which to work our stitches. I'll come back to center and I'll pierce the center with the needle and draw through. Next, I will wrap the thread just a couple of times until I reach the level of the bottom of the round of triangles. In this case, it's only about 3 or 4 wraps until I reach the appropriate level. Again, you may have a different number of wraps to accommodate whatever size pattern you've created and the size thread you've chosen to use.